Close your eyes. Leave the worries of this day behind. Let your mind drift back in time, to a place where history was not yet written on paper, to a time when the earth itself was young, wild, and undiscovered. Breathe in slowly, and let the noise of the modern world fade away into the quiet of the past. Long before the first cities rose, long before the first laws, and even before the human voice learned to sing songs, the world belonged to the Titans. They were majestic, monumental beings, born from the very flesh of the earth and sky. They moved through the mists, their footsteps echoing like thunder in the mountains, and their gaze was as cold as the peaks of Olympus. They ruled with absolute power, indifferent to the small, fragile things that lived beneath their giant shadows. The rivers ran deep and wild, the forests were dense and untamed, and the world belonged to a grand, primordial order. In those ancient times, the earth knew no warmth. When the sun dipped below the horizon, the world was swallowed by an absolute, impenetrable darkness. There were no lanterns, no cozy homes, not even a tiny spark to scatter the night shadows. The dark was heavy, thick, and filled with the unknown. The stars above were distant and cold, offering no comfort to the valleys below. When winter arrived, ice covered the rivers, and the freezing winds swept across the barren landscapes, ruling the earth with a bitter, frozen hand. And within this darkness, humans lived. Humanity back then was barely different from the beasts of the night. They huddled in deep, damp caves where the stone breathed cold. Every night, as darkness descended upon the forests and valleys, a primal terror gripped mankind. They heard the footsteps of predators echoing outside their stone walls. They heard the howling of the wind, and they had nothing to protect themselves. They did not know the comfort of hot food. They did not know what it felt like to warm the freezing hands of a neighbor, a companion, or a child. They spent their lives in a state of perpetual survival, hiding in the shadows, waiting for a dawn that felt a longing coming, for the gods of Olympus, who had replaced the Titans after a long and brutal war. Humans were nothing but dust beneath their feet. The new ruler, Zeus the Thunderer, looked down at mankind from his golden throne on Mount Olympus and saw only weakness. He believed that mortals were unworthy of the immortals' attention or care. Zeus wanted humans to remain in the twilight of ignorance, obedient, silent, and terrified of the forces of nature. To the high gods, the mortal race was meant to be small, fragile, and bound to the earth forever. But not all immortals shared his cold indifference. Among the Titans who retained their wisdom and stayed alive after the Great War was one whose very name meant forethinker, the one who thinks ahead. His name was Prometheus. Unlike his proud brothers, who looked at the universe with arrogance, he possessed a rare gift for an immortal, the gift of deep compassion. He did not see humans as mere clay or dust. He saw a spark of something greater within them, an unawakened mind capable of creating beauty, understanding truth, and building a future. Prometheus often descended from the majestic heights of Olympus to walk the earth. He walked the same paths as mortals, hiding his grand presence in the shadows of the ancient trees. He watched human families tremble from the nightly chill of winter air. He saw their eyes, full of fear at every thunderstorm, at every rustle in the bushes. He watched them weep for those lost to the cold and hunger. He saw that without help, this fragile creation was doomed to a slow extinction. Humanity was fading away in the dark, never knowing who they could become, never discovering the arts, the tools, or the stories they were meant to share. Prometheus ascended to Mount Olympus and stood before Zeus, speaking of mercy. "Look at them, ruler of the sky," the Titan said, his voice calm and steady. "They have minds, but they live like beasts. Grant them a fraction of your light. Allow them to rise from their knees, to build shelter, and to warm their shivering children." But Zeus only knitted his heavy brows, and storm clouds gathered over Mount Olympus. "Mortals must know their place," Prometheus, the supreme god, replied. his voice like rolling thunder. Light and knowledge belong to the gods alone. If humans receive power, they will forget to respect us. They will become proud. They will challenge the heavens, and they will disrupt the order of the cosmos. Leave them in their darkness. It is their destiny to remain small. Prometheus remained silent. He bowed his head in a sign of submission. But a grand plan was already born in his mind. It was a plan that required incredible courage and doomed him to a danger that would make even an immortal shudder. He realized that if the gods would not give light willingly, it had to be stolen for the sake of the living world. The Titan waited until night covered Mount Olympus with its black veil. When the high gods fell into a deep sleep after a lavish feast, Prometheus quietly slipped through the golden gates of Zeus's palace. He walked down the silent corridors, his footsteps lighter than the wind. He approached the sacred hearth, where a pure, divine flame burned. This was the source of life, warmth, and cosmic wisdom. It was not just a fire that burned wood. It was the primal element of creation itself, the very energy that shaped the stars and planets. With him, Prometheus carried only a long, hollow stalk of a fennel reed. It was a simple, dry stalk that grew quietly on the banks of earthly rivers. Looking entirely harmless, he reached out his hand and caught a single, tiny spark of this great fire. He hid it safely inside the hollow reed, where the core of the plant began to smolder slowly, preserving the heat, but letting no light escape to alert the celestial guardians. Sealing the stalk, Prometheus hurried back, descending the steep, dangerous slopes of the mountain down to the cold world of men. Every step he took could have been noticed. If Zeus had awakened, a single thunderbolt would have incinerated everything around. But the Titan did not think of his own safety. He thought only of the freezing caves below, where children slept on bare stone, when his feet touched the earthly grass. The night was at its peak. Prometheus came to the largest cave, where dozens of human families huddled in the dark. They slept pressed against each other to preserve the last bit of human warmth, trembling in their sleep as the frost gathered on the rocks. Prometheus dropped to his knees on the cold ground. He gathered dry leaves, small twigs, and fallen brushwood, arranging them carefully. And then he opened his secret fennel stalk. He gently blew on the hidden spark. The air breathed life into the fire, and a small, bright ribbon of smoke rose upward into the darkness of the cave. A moment later, the dry leaves caught fire. A small, brilliant flame was born in the middle of the dark cave, casting a warm, golden glow onto the stone walls. People began to wake up, their eyes reflecting the strange new light. At first, they were terrified. They had never seen fire so close. Before this, it was only the angry fire of lightning that destroyed trees and brought destruction from the sky. They wanted to flee deeper into the shadows of the cave, covering their faces, but Prometheus gently calmed them, his voice soft like a lullaby. He stretched his large palms toward the flame, showing them that it carried no malice, only comfort and safety. One of the elders of the tribe timidly took a step forward, his hands shaking. He reached out and felt something humanity had never known: pure, soft, life-giving warmth. The cold that had lived in his bones for years began to retreat. The first smile of relief in human history appeared on his face. Prometheus sat with them until the very morning. He taught the people how to feed this fire with dry branches so it wouldn't go out. He showed them how the flame could be used to ward off wild beasts, who now looked at the cave timidly from a distance, their wild eyes reflecting the fire, not daring to approach the bright light. This night marked the end of primal fear. The next day, fire appeared in another cave, then in a neighboring settlement, and soon it spread across the lands. Around the hearths, people began to gather together. They began to talk, to share stories, to cook food, and to dream. The fire gave them time after sunset that now belonged to them, not to nightmares. It was the dawn of human civilization. But high on Mount Olympus, Zeus opened his eyes. He looked down at the earth, and instead of the usual black void, he saw thousands of tiny, golden lights shining in the night, like stars that had fallen from the sky. Zeus understood everything, and his anger was more terrible than any storm. The golden lights dancing across the valleys filled Zeus with a cold, unyielding rage. He watched from his high throne as humans built walls, forged tools, and gathered around warm hearths. They were no longer afraid of shadows, and in their newfound strength, they began to forget to pray to the gods of Olympus. Zeus knew he could not simply take the fire back, for once a gift of knowledge is given, it takes root in the minds of those who receive it. Instead, the ruler of the gods decided to punish both mankind and the Titan who had dared to defy his command. His vengeance would be slow, deliberate, and eternal. First, Zeus turned his gaze toward the humans. He ordered Hephaestus, the divine blacksmith, to fashion a creature of incredible beauty. Using clay and water, Hephaestus created the first mortal woman, naming her Pandora, which meant the one who gives all gifts. Each god on Olympus bestowed a trait upon her. Aphrodite gave her unmatched grace, Athena clothed her in silver garments, and Hermes granted her a silver tongue and a deeply curious mind. Before sending Pandora down to the earth, Zeus handed her a heavy, beautifully crafted box, tightly sealed and adorned with ancient runes. He strictly forbade her from ever opening it, knowing well that her curiosity would eventually master her will. Pandora was brought to the earth as a gift to Prometheus's brother, Epimetheus. Though Prometheus had warned his brother to accept anything from the gods, Epimetheus was blinded by her grace and welcomed Pandora into his home. For a short time, there was peace, but the mysterious box sat in the corner of the house, whispering to Pandora's thoughts. Every evening, as the fire crackled in the hearth, she looked at the sealed lid, wondering what grand treasures the rulers of Olympus had hidden inside. One quiet night, when the world was asleep, the temptation became too heavy to bear. Pandora stepped softly toward the box. Her fingers trembling, she touched the cold metal lock. With a gentle breath, she lifted the lid, intending to take only a brief glimpse inside. But there were no treasures within. In an instant, a dark, freezing mist erupted from the opening. Black smoke swirled through the room, carrying the screams and whispers of things that had never existed on Earth before. Zeus had trapped all the miseries, illnesses, hardships, and sorrows of the universe inside that vessel. The dark spirits flew out of the windows, scattering across the world, settling into the valleys, and entering the homes of humans. Terrified, Pandora slammed the lid shut, but it was too late. The age of perfect peace had ended. From that night on, humans would have to endure sickness, labor, grief, and old age. Yet, at the very bottom of the box, trapped beneath the heavy lid, remained one final thing that Zeus had hidden, a tiny, glowing spark called hope. It was the one gift that would allow humanity to survive all the hardships that now walked the earth. With mankind punished, Zeus turned his full wrath upon Prometheus. The Thunderer sent his giant servants, Strength and Force, to seize the Titan and drag him to the furthest edge of the known world, deep into the freezing, desolate peaks of the Caucasus Mountains. There, high above the clouds, where the wind cut like knives and the stone was black as night, Hephaestus forged unbreakable chains of solid iron. With a heavy heart, for he secretly admired the Titan's courage, the divine blacksmith bound Prometheus to a massive, jagged cliffside. The iron links were driven deep into the living rock, locking the Titan in place. Hanging between the earth and the heavens, Zeus stood before the chained Titan, his voice echoing through the mountains like thunder. "You chose to give your devotion to mortals," Prometheus, the king of gods, declared. "Now, you shall see the price of your pride. You will stand here for eternity, exposed to the burning sun by day and the freezing frost by night. No one will come to save you, But Prometheus did not beg for mercy. He remained silent, his eyes fixed on the distant valleys below, where the campfires of humans still burned bright and warm. He knew that even with the sorrows released by Pandora, humanity now possessed the tools to survive, to learn, and to build a future. His sacrifice had not been in vain. Seeing that the Titan's spirit could not be broken by chains alone, Zeus devised a final, agonizing torment. He sent a monstrous eagle, a creature of shadow and sharp talons, to fly to the mountain peak every single day. As the sun rose over the horizon, the great beast would descend upon the cliff, tearing into Prometheus's side, to feed upon his immortal liver. Because Prometheus was a god, he could not die. Every evening, after the eagle flew away into the twilight, the cold mountain air would heal his wounds, his body would repair itself, and his liver would grow back completely in the quiet of the night. But as the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, the heavy beat of wings would return, bringing the same agonizing torment, day after day, year after year. 4 centuries to come, the world changed below. Kingdoms rose and fell into dust. New languages were spoken around the fires, and generations of humans lived and died. Yet, high in the mountains, the Titan remained, enduring an eternity of pain, because he chose to believe in the potential of mankind. Centuries passed, rolling by like waves on a distant shore. The torment seemed endless, but the wheels of fate were turning. From the lineage of the very mortals Prometheus had saved, a hero was born. His name was Heracles, a son of Zeus, possessing strength that rivaled the gods themselves. During his great travels, Heracles climbed high into the desolate peaks of the Caucasus Mountains. He heard the distant, agonizing groans echoing through the valleys and followed the sound until he reached the dark, jagged cliff. There, he saw the Titan, weary but unbowed, still chained to the ancient stone. Just as Heracles approached, the shadow of the great eagle fell across the mountain. The monstrous beast descended from the clouds, its talons ready to strike once more. But Heracles did not hesitate. He drew his mighty bow, notched an arrow dipped in the venom of the Hydra, and pulled the string tight. With a sharp release, the arrow pierced the air, striking the eagle down and ending the torment forever. Using his unmatched strength, Heracles swung his massive club against the unbreakable iron chains forged by Hephaestus. With a sound like shattering thunder, the link snapped, and the stone cracked open. Prometheus was finally free. Zeus, watching from Olympus, chose not to strike them down. The ruler of the gods had watched humanity grow, build empires, and honor the cosmos. He saw that the Titan's gift had not destroyed the world, but had illuminated it. Zeus accepted his son's deed, and a peace was made between the king of gods and the defender of mankind. Prometheus returned to the realm of the immortals, but a part of his story remained on Earth. To remember his sacrifice and his bond with the stone, Prometheus wore a ring made from the iron of his chains, set with a small piece of the Caucasus rock. And from that day on, humans began to wear rings with stones, a silent, ancient tradition to honor the Titan who gave everything for them. Let the image of that enduring strength comfort you as the night deepens. The shadows may be vast, and the cold may linger outside, but the fire given to us so long ago still burns. It warms our homes, it guides our thoughts, and it keeps the darkness at bay. The ancient world is asleep now, and its stories are safe within your mind. The light is steady, the world is at rest. Sleep well.